First off, thanks for everybody coming today. I know there's a lot of things going on in the Indiana sports world these days, but I appreciate you guys coming out. A lot of excitement, in a lot of different areas. We got so many good things going on in the Indiana sports world, but I'd be remiss if I don't first talk about Nancy Leonard. I don't think any of us would be sitting here right now in this where we're at today without Nancy and Slick and what the Leonard family meant to the Pacers and to the state of Indiana and sports here and our community in general. And our thoughts and prayers go out to that family, first class. They're like the king and queen of Indiana basketball. So, and she meant a lot to this organization, to our team, to our players, to the fans, obviously, and as did her husband. So, thoughts and prayers to the family of the Leonards. Like I mentioned before, so many good things going on with Indiana sports. The Colts, the Fever, IU football. Sorry, Kevin, about the Irish football right now, but that's plenty of time. But really excited about what's going on in the sporting world around us, because I've been in communities before where there's a lot of competition between team and team, and I feel like there's an authentic and genuine support amongst all the athletes, all the organizations pulling for each other. We felt it last year during the playoffs. Hopefully the Colts, the Fever obviously are feeling it from our players and our team and our organization. Just a lot of great things going on. I know it benefits everybody in this room to have so many good teams having success right now. So I wanted to touch base on all those. And I don't know if, Ted, if you want to add anything to that, but if not, we're glad to open up some questions about the team.
Chad, where is Tyrese right now in terms of his rehabilitation?
Our medical staff would tell you he's right on pace where he should be. I think he's 8 or 12 weeks removed from surgery. We were just talking about this yesterday, but he's right on pace where he needs to be. He's obviously, you've seen him walking around without the boot. He's going through the typical rehab procedure with an Achilles, which can be kind of monotonous and tedious, but it's part of the long-term, growth of getting yourself back healthy. But he's doing great, and I know he wishes he was getting ready to play for practice on Tuesday, but mentally, I think he's in a good place, and physically is as well.
Chad, we hear the word gap year a lot now thrown around for you guys without Tyrese. Miles is gone. How would you define success in a season like this, where it'll be a little different than last year, but you still win what you have?
Well, the first part of your question wasn't asked to me last year, but I remember everybody asking me what would define success this year coming off an Eastern Conference Finals run. I think I would answer it the same way as I did last year. I think we approach everything with our organization, with Coach Carlisle, with Kevin, maximizing every day. Approaching every day, how can we be a little bit better today, and not thinking about the end result as much as we are thinking about improving ourselves and developing ourselves, our players, our staff, our team, every single day. And wherever that takes us is where it takes us. We saw where it took us last year, and I think your ceiling is defined by how consistent you are with what you do every day. And we want to be consistent with our approach, with our players, with their work, with our team, with their preparation, with our staff. But, we hear people talk about this being a gap year. I don't think that's ever been what we've been about. With Mr. Simon as our owner, it's always been about trying to compete and trying to win. Now, some years are going to be more challenging than others. Obviously we're down Tyrese, so that will make some challenges, but we're not looking at this as a year to just try and get through. We'd never wish away a season. We've got so many opportunities for some players on our team that weren't there before, that we're excited to see what they can do. And I think this team has shown that they come together when people kind of doubt them. And I think they feel and they sense and they hear the doubt about this season for us. And we're still going to have a lot of the same identity. We still have a lot of the same core pieces on this team. The traits that those guys, bring, what our coaches bring, is still there. So I wouldn't put a limit on anything for this year. But as far as what defines success, I think we want to be playing our best at the end of the year, whatever that takes us to.
Same kind of path, general philosophy in terms of what you do both on offense and defense? And what ways do you want to see it, and how do you want to see it adapt? What do you want to keep, and what do you want to change on the basis of what you don't have right now?
Yeah, I think Coach Carlisle would tell you we want to keep several things that we've been doing for the last multiple years since he's been here, and that's hard play, that's playing together, that's picking up guys full court defensively, playing different than a lot of the other teams in our league are doing. And that's what has been our separator, is the hard play and the kind of different style of play. Now, things that may be a little different are, we don't have Tyrese leading the charge, creating pace. It may be a little different with how we play offensively. We'll probably be a little more physical. Maybe we might be a little better defensively. But we're going to have to play a little differently to win. And that doesn't mean we're going to completely change how we play, but there's going to be a different path and maybe a little different style of what we're doing on the offensive end at least. But I think as a core, who we are is never going to change, regardless of who's out there playing. Coach Carlisle's teams have always been hard playing. They've been tough. They play together. They're extremely well coached, and they're extremely well prepared. And you'll see that again this year from this group.
How do you see a change on offense? I mean, I imagine you guys still want to share the ball. I imagine you still want to play with pace when you can. I guess do you just have to be prepared for more isolation situations, or what do you think will change on the basis of just the gravity you lose?
Yeah, you're losing a ball handler, obviously a primary ball handler with Tyrese. Now we'll be able to slide Drew over to do some of that responsibility, and that creates, minutes for other players on our roster that maybe don't do some of the same things that they're replacing. So, Coach Carlisle is a brilliant coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach. One of his strengths is taking what's given to him and maximizing it. And I think you'll see us play, like I said, probably a little more physical style of game. We'll have the ball in the hands of some other players at times where it was Drew before. Now maybe it's in Benedict, or maybe it's more in Pascal or Aaron or Jarus, whoever it might be. There's opportunity for guys to kind of establish themselves of what they can do to help this team this year, but also moving forward. We're always going to be looking, long term as well. But I think, the thing you'll notice differently is probably we won't be playing quite as fast, but we'll still be pushing the ball. But it'll be a little more of a physical, probably execution type team this year.
Chad, Drew, obviously there's going to be added emphasis on him. How much confidence do you have in him stepping up this year?
I mean, we're big believers in Drew. I think you've seen growth from him every season he's been with us. I think you saw the culmination of a lot of things he can do as a defensive player in the playoffs last year. Some of the players that he was, try to slow down. I think you'll see more of an offensive, growth from him this year. And we're going to put a lot on his plate, having to be the primary ball handler, whether he's having to guard all these, high-level scores on the other end. We'll kind of defer to what Rick and our staff feels is best on any given night. But I think there's room left that you're going to see him take on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, we saw glimpses of it when Ty's been out in the past. But I think he's ready for this opportunity. He's excited for it. Obviously, he's disappointed that Ty's not out there with him. But he knows this is kind of his chance to really showcase some of the things that he's been trying to work on. And, he's a very, very cerebral player. And he knows how I fit in with the guys around me. Now there's different pieces around him, and he's going to figure it out. And I think he's going to have a tremendous season for us.
I'd also add, I think we have a lot of faith and confidence in his ability to lead and his leadership ability there. We're going to need more of that throughout the team with Ty going down. And Drew has had those ability to exhibit that leadership quality, and I think he's going to find his voice more. He's going to be able to kind of control the floor as a floor general and continue to kind of take on that opportunity. Over the summer, he brought all the guards up to Toronto to kind of do a team building event up there. So we're really seeing a lot of steps and growth in his leadership ability.
How pivotal of a year is it for Ben Mathurin, and what's the next step in his growth?
Want to answer that? Obviously, a big opportunity for Ben. With the injury to Ty, what that creates for minutes, for the need for scoring, and I think Benedict he's wanted more. Ever since he's been here, he's wanted more. He's a big believer in himself, as you guys know. He's a tremendous competitor, a tough-minded worker. And I think we want to see him fit with the way we play. And we've talked about that in the past. We want to see him really making quick decisions, sprinting the floor, embracing defensive matchups that now may come down to his plate with Drew sliding over and having a more offensive responsibility. And Benedict's ready for all that. I mean, you guys know Benedict. He feels like he can do anything you ask of him. And that's a great quality of him, is his confidence. But I think now it's really taking the next step in his fit with how we want to play. And I think this is, he's going to walk into training camp as a starting shooting guard, and that's his spot to earn and to keep. But I think he understands what's expected of him. We've had a lot of communication with him. Rick and our coaches talked to him a lot about what they're expecting from him, and I think he knows it, and he's just got to go out and do it. And I think he's ready to do it.
How does that balance change between how Rick talked a lot about that last year, especially in games with Ty missed. He was there were sometimes when Ben was just allowed to be Ben, be in isolation, drive at people, go draw fouls, go get buckets. How does that balance change for him of trying to play the way that fits, that you guys want to play long term, versus play the way that fits you guys right now in terms of having a guy that can go get you buckets? He's been doing it that full time.
we need Benedict to play his style that suits his strengths, but we need it to help us win. You know, finding that balance of doing what he does well, but within the team frame of what we need him to do for us to be successful. Because you don't want, you know, not that this is Benedict, but there's players who are going to look and see, okay, I scored 22 points tonight. I don't care. I don't look at the win or loss. I just know I played well. And that's not how Ben is. Ben wants to win, but we need his production, his play style to adapt to us that allows us to win games. And I think that's the challenge for a young player, is figuring out, okay, what can I do, and then figuring out what can I do that helps us win. There's two separate things there, and we need the winning part to be part of Ben's, you know, approach, and I think he can do it. And I think there's things that he does that we need, that we're lacking, and him figuring out when do I do that and when do I play within the system of what we're trying to do is a challenge for a young player. And that's what Ben's going through. And he's still a very, very young player, and his future is still way out in front of him. And we're excited to see what he can do with added, you know, opportunity this year.
So you're gonna know, how does all of that factor into the decision to extend him or not extend him? Obviously, he's eligible at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think try to keep things, you know, private when it comes to extension talks with, you know, out of respect to the player and the agent. But, you know, we're always evaluating, you know, every player's future with us, and that will be no different with him this season.
Chad, how unique was this offseason? Obviously, you played as long as you could. You had seismic moves with the roster and still trying to do all the day-to-day stuff. How was it a challenge for you and your staff?
Yeah, I mean, obviously how it ended was created a lot of, you know, new decisions for us, and in the off season, I think, you know, I remember I was standing next to Ted during Game 7, and when Tyrese went down, and we knew what the injury probably was. Is, you know, I looked at Ted, and Ted's just like, "Ooh, this off season is going to be a lot different than we thought it was going to be." But that's part of the business, you know. It's part of the challenge of building a team and maximizing, you know, what you have. And I think this off season was a little shorter, but it was also, you know, exciting for us to try and find a way to, how can we take this team, given what we know in front of us, how can we prepare ourselves to take a step and build this year, and then continue to grow off of that when Tyrese does return. So, you know, as far as the off season, I think we'll always have the same focus. How can we make this team better and maximize where we're going to be long term?
How do you view what you have in the center and how different that's going to look? And, you know, are you comfortable with what you have, or do you still need to do some work there?
I think it's a great opportunity for the centers that we currently have on the roster to take advantage of what's ahead of them and to see how they can fit into our play style and our team. You know, losing Miles was a loss over this summer, but I think we have a lot of confidence and ability in the centers that we do have on the roster. They all bring a little bit of unique kind of skill set and different attributes. But, you know, a little bit of it is going to be about the injury recovery for Isaiah and James Wiseman. But they've been looking great in the gym. And then Jay, you know, Jay's ability to stretch the floor and his size and his rim protection is something that we're excited to see as well. And Tony has just been providing a stable presence, and, you know, kind of as he stepped in during the Eastern Conference Finals and some in the finals, he's really taken a little bit of a step as well. So we're excited about the opportunity that each of them brings. We understand kind of the hole that's there, but it's a constant evaluation and a little bit of excitement.
Have any restrictions on James or Isaiah early back-to-backs for them? And how will watching what they do influence what you can do with Ty's recovery?
Yeah, no restrictions as of now. I mean, we'll play it day by day, what our medical staff recommends for both of those guys. You know, James is probably a little further along in his recovery. He obviously had the injury a little before Isaiah. But both those guys are, you know, playing, practicing, you know, going through full, you know, speed, you know, work. And so, but you never know how the body's going to respond. You get in a training camp, it's an elevated workload, higher intensity, and we'll, you know, play it day by day to see how those guys are progressing.
What was the off season like for both of you? Maybe Ted could start being in this community and talking to fans, and maybe having them tell you stories of what that run meant to them, and maybe could you share any, you know, experiences you had?
I think it's still ongoing. It's not just the off season, but yesterday I was at the doctor's appointment, and, you know, everybody there is talking about Pacers and what the last season has meant. You know, I think I've traveled a bit over the summer, and you go to the airport and you see people wearing Pacers gear, repping it, how excited they were about what happened over the last season and the season before, and how even with what we're about to face this coming season, how excited they are to get Pacers back on and to watch them. So similar to what Chad was saying, this community is so bought in to the Pacers, and it's continued to see that joy and happiness that the team has been able to bring to the community. So that's been exciting, especially as somebody not from Indiana, like to come into the state and the community and to see what it really means to be, a Pacers fan has been awesome.
I would second. The one comment that I hear a lot that gives me the most pride is when somebody comes up to me and says, "Man, I just loved watching your team play. I loved how they played for each other. They were selfless. They supported. They rooted for each other." That like touches me the most when I hear that, because that's a reflection of what your coach and your culture has built, the product out on the floor when they play that way. I'll give you this one example that sticks with me. I'm out at Vegas Summer League, and I'm walking on the concourse between gyms, and I see a mom and a dad with LeBron James Lakers jerseys on, and they have a little, like, probably 4-year-old boy that they're holding hands with, both mom and dad. He's got a Tyrese Halliburton jersey on. And I'm like, I went up to that little kid, I'm like, yes. And I said to mom and dad, I'm like, boo. And I'm like, so I thought that I wanted to take a picture of it, because I'm like, you never saw that in the past. You would never see, obviously the Lakers are one of the premier teams, and you see their little son with the Pacer jerseys on. So, but love, the response to our players. They've earned that, and hopefully we can continue to build off of that.
Where do you think stand with Jarus Walker?
As far as just his role on the team? Very important year for Jarus. I think we've seen glimpses of what he can do. I think he understands this is an opportunity for him to step in and provide some defense, some rebounding, some physicality that we know he can do. And he's just got to embrace that role. I think as a young player, you're trying to do a lot of things because you're figuring out, how do I get on the floor? And I think it's better for a young player like Jarus to focus on one or two things that makes you become an important role player, and then you build off of that. And I think Jarus had an awesome day today. The guys were just playing pickup, just unorganized pickup ball, and he was phenomenal today. And I think that's stacking good days on top of each other is important. Our coaches want to see that. But we have a real role for somebody to step in there and be a night-to-night, big winged defender, big-bodied winged defender. And Aaron can do that, certain matchups. There's certain matchups where he's just a little small. And Jarus has the size and physicality to do that. And we need him to embrace that role. And this is opportunity for him to do it, and he's just got to show us.
Chad, when you say that, it sounds like you're repeating what Pascal probably said to the guys when they had their own private pre-training camp, mini camp. How has Pascal maybe impressed you as a leader, especially embracing this team and whatever it takes to still be successful and winning and playing competitive basketball?
Yeah, I mean, when we acquired Pascal, he was a world champion, and we were be able to bring that experience and leadership to the guys. And I think our players really resonated with that. And he's just continued to step up over and over again since day one that he's been here to take on that leadership role and that winning culture and to bring that over to Indiana. This is I think it's the second year in a row he's done this Orlando workout. He's gotten all the players down there, welcomed them to his home and invited him to, into his life. And, our guys really respond to that, that type of a leader, and it's just been exciting to see him be able to embrace that role, to embrace that voice, and to continue to build on it.
Do you think that resonates more because of his path? Like he wasn't, remember when you said, almost right off the bat.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think the G League. I think we talked to Jarus a lot about that, and Pascal has really taken him under his wing in terms of everybody's path in this league is different. Pascal was, a late first rounder who had to play in the G League, was G League MVP, kind of done a lot of different things throughout his career before he's turned into this multi-time All-Star, All-NBA player. And now that's where he's at, and he can use that to explain to others that even if you're not getting in the game right now, if you can play your role, if you can embrace this opportunity in front of you, your time will come. The talent's there. We know the talent's there with Jarus. It's how are you going to take advantage of the opportunity that's presented to you.
I want to ask you guys about Jay and about Monte. Obviously, you guys just recently signed Monte Morris. What did you like about each of those guys? What made them good fits considering what they're doing?
Well, I'd first say, Jay Huff is a player that we first saw in college, and he was a developing young big man in college. And then as he got into the G League, this was a couple years ago, we played in the G League playoffs against the Wizards team. And we all traveled over to Washington to watch that game, and I remember thinking that he has really come along. He's really taken big steps, and so we continue to monitor him. And then when the knee came up for a stretch 5 this summer, he was a name that our analytics staff is always targeted, and he was just a great fit for us. His age, his shooting, his IQ, and so we thought this is a good match for us. And him learning to play at the pace we need to play at will be an adjustment, like it was for Pascal when we traded for him as well. So that's an adjustment that he's going to go through. But his shooting, his intelligence is a great fit for Coach Carlisle and his system. And then the second one, Monty Morris, unfortunately, has a calf strain issue that's going to keep him out for a couple of weeks. So he will not be in training camp with us while he's getting healthy. But Monty was a guy that, we're looking for some guard depth, and we'll continue to look for some guard depth there.
Chad, how do you kind of view the East? I mean, obviously a lot of injuries kind of played into maybe some of the marquee guys. How do you view the conference as a whole?
The East gets dumped on all the time by people, and I think it's unfair because I think there's a lot of great players, individual players. There's good teams. There's great coaches. There's places that are very tough to go in and win in their building. So I think, you got some teams returning a lot of their core back, from last season that are going to be very good. You got some teams that, made some moves on the offseason that are going to really help their team. And I think it's going to be I think there's a couple teams at the top that are probably established themselves above us going into the season, but I think there's a mix of teams that are going to have some new pieces there, whether they fit or not. We'll see, and we have some continuity, which I think will benefit us. But it's going to be competitive. I think last year it was right down to the end of the season. Trying jockeying for position. I see that happening again this year. I think there's very few teams that aren't trying to win in the East this year, and I know some teams are, including us, are missing key players, but I still think the course of the NBA season, a book builds on a team, and you develop an identity, and you just become, maybe a team that's better than people anticipated, and hopefully that's our case this year.
I know you want to keep extension stuff private. Any talks with Aaron? Any hopes with something getting done there when it's possible in a week?
Yeah, I'm not able to do anything yet, obviously, with Aaron, but obviously we value what he does as a player, but also who he is as a person. He's been a great fit with our team, and would love to keep him here.
I want to go back to what you said about Monte. Obviously, you've got, I guess, him and Tony on non-guarantees, and Jalen's also on a training camp deal. Especially if you're not going to have Monte for a couple of weeks, what's sort of the plan in terms of making sort of final decisions on the 15th guy? What are you guys going to be looking for there, especially having to consider one of those guys is going to miss a lot of time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 15th roster spot is going to be a camp battle. I think, listening to our coaches, having more ball handlers and more playmaking is important to them. As we talked about some of the centers, we're still dealing with a few injuries, so we're kind of balancing positionally, where to keep our, positionally just what our options are. I think it's going to be an ongoing evaluation. Talent will step up, and maybe it'll be easy for us to make a decision. Maybe it'll be difficult to make a decision, but we value the 15th roster spot. It's going to be something that we'll likely fill. But is that going to be the 15th roster spot throughout the entire season either? We don't know, right? Like, we want to have optionality. We want to be able to be ability to strike when something is presenting it themselves. So we'll kind of see who we bring in the 15th spot. Tony will be here for training camp, and we'll kind of see if there's somebody else in the the guard position that we'll bring in.
I know he's moving on, but Mike Weiner, what did he mean to you this franchise?
I mean, Mike was obviously, he and Rick were together for a long time. First off, first-class human being, him and his family. Got to be close with him and his family while he was during his time here. Extremely well-prepared, bright coach. Brought a lot of energy every day to the gym. And, he did a lot of great things for this team, and, wish him the best moving forward.